Mother's Day is for the good kids. Your daughter can sit this one out. My mother Eleanor's voice sliced through the phone, as sharp and cold as a shard of glass. Those words didn't just register as an insult. They landed like a physical punch to my gut. I glanced across the warm wood of my kitchen table at my 9-year-old daughter, Maya. She was in the middle of drinking her apple juice, a happy, simple moment, but she froze instantly. The glass stopped, suspended halfway to her lips. Her big brown eyes, usually so full of light, widened with a dawning, innocent confusion. Her voice, when it came out, was a tiny, fragile whisper that shattered my heart into a million pieces. Grandma doesn't love me? That was it. That was the precise moment the world shifted on its axis. My entire life, I had been the good one, the responsible one. I was Alexandra Pierce, but my real title was the family's personal bank. I was the silent financier of my mother's credit cards, my brother's car, my sister's extravagant vacations. I had spent years swallowing their casual insults, their breathtaking entitlement, all in the name of keeping the peace. But listening to that familiar poison finally spill over, finally touch my daughter, I realized the peace was never real. It was just their brand of control. I looked at Maya's trembling lower lip, the tears welling in her eyes, and a cold, serene certainty settled deep within my bones. This twisted cycle, this weaponization of love and acceptance, it was ending. It was ending right now. Before we get into what happened next, do me a quick favor and hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what's coming. And drop me a comment down below to let me know where in the world you're watching from. For my entire adult life, I wasn't really Alexandra Pierce, the person. I was Alexandra Pierce, the provider, the fixer, the quiet, ever-open wallet that everyone felt entitled to dip into whenever they pleased. It didn't happen overnight. It was a slow, methodical erosion of boundaries, so subtle I barely noticed it happening. It began right after I graduated from college and landed my first real job as a financial consultant. I was so proud of my starting salary, of that first real paycheck, and my mother Eleanor suggested we link our bank accounts. "Just in case of an emergency, darling," she'd said, her hand patting mine with a gesture that felt like affection. It's what families do. We have to support each other. I fell for it completely. I craved that support. I desperately wanted the kind of loving, supportive family I saw in movies and on TV. I was so starved for her approval. For that feeling of belonging, I would have signed my soul away. So I signed the paperwork. The emergencies began almost immediately, and they were small at first. "Alex, I'm just a little bit short for the utility bill this month," Eleanor would say over the phone, her voice laced with a faint, practiced helplessness. "You don't mind, do you?" And of course, I didn't mind. "Hey, Alex, my car insurance is due," my brother Leo would text. "Can you spot me?" "I'll pay you back next week." He never ever paid me back. Then, as my career took off, the requests began to grow in scale. My promotions came fast. I was good at my job, and I worked tirelessly, putting in long hours, especially after Maya was born, and her father decided fatherhood wasn't for him and vanished. I was working to build a stable, secure life for my daughter, but to my family, my rising income was simply a shared resource. "Alexandra, darling," Eleanor said one day, cornering me in my own kitchen while she was visiting, "your brother is just so incredibly talented, but his music career is taking a little longer to launch. He just needs a reliable car to get to gigs, a safe car. You wouldn't want your brother driving around in that old, unsafe thing, would you?" The guilt was laid on thick. So I co-signed the loan for a brand new sedan. Within 3 months, the loan payments began defaulting directly to my bank account. When I gently brought it up with Leo, He exploded. I'm an artist, Alex. I can't be bogged down with worrying about bills and numbers. It kills my creative flow. You're the one with the stable job. You're supposed to support me in this. My sister Sophia operated on a different level of entitlement. She was all about aesthetics and image. She'd married a man named Richard with a flashy watch and an empty bank account, and her entire existence was a performance of wealth she didn't have. She didn't even bother to ask for money. She just spent it. Why is there a $700 charge here from a wellness spa? I asked Eleanor one evening, staring at the family credit card statement that I, naturally, was responsible for paying off each month. Oh, that was for Sophia, Eleanor said, not even bothering to look up from the fashion magazine she was flipping through. She's been under so much stress lately, poor thing. She really needed a day to herself. She finally looked at me, her gaze dismissive. You get to sit in your nice air-conditioned office all day, Alexandra. You don't understand what real stress is. I was a single mother working 60-hour weeks to support 4 adults, but I didn't argue. I just paid the bill. It became my ritual. Every Friday evening, after putting Maya to bed, I would sit down at my laptop, open my banking app, and survey the weekly damage. Eleanor's high-end grocery bills, Leo's charges for gas, new guitar strings, and endless tabs at local bars. Sophia's relentless stream of packages from online boutiques. It was thousands of dollars, every single month. I kept telling myself I was doing it to maintain the peace. But peace was just a pretty word for my complete and utter silence. Peace meant that I was never allowed to have a problem or a need of my own. Peace meant that I had to host every single holiday and then listen silently as my family criticized the food I'd bought and prepared. Peace meant my mother would call me to complain for an hour about Leo's laziness, and in the very next breath, ask me to send him money for his rent. The one time I actually tried to say no, the fallout was catastrophic. I can't cover Sophia's trip to Miami this year, I told my mother on the phone, my voice trembling slightly. Maya really needs braces, and I'm trying to put some money aside for them. The silence that stretched over the line was heavy and suffocating. Then Eleanor's voice returned, dripping with a cold, calculated disappointment. Oh, I see. Mom, it's just that… No, I understand perfectly, she cut in, her tone becoming sharper. Your sister is going to be absolutely heartbroken. You know how much she looks up to you. She just wanted a chance to feel special for once in her life. But you're right. Your new life must come first. We'll just have to tell her that you don't think she deserves a vacation. The guilt she wielded was a physical force, pressing down on me until I couldn't breathe. She made me feel monstrously selfish. She made me feel cruel. And, as always, I caved. No, wait, don't tell her that, I stammered. I'll figure something out. I'll move some money around. She can go. The relief in Eleanor's voice was instant and sickeningly bright. Oh, wonderful, darling. I knew you'd do the right thing. You truly are the rock of this family. We would simply fall apart without you. I hung up the phone and burst into tears. I had just chosen to fund my 30-year-old sister's vacation over my own daughter's dental health. That was the system. They were the family. I was the bank. Maya and I were just a small branch office, existing solely to service the needs of the main headquarters. They demanded my money, but they never once demanded my time. They never called to ask how Maya was doing in school. They never showed up for her dance recitals. They forgot her birthday entirely last year, but they never, ever forgot when one of their bills was due. The peace I was buying was a one-way transaction. It meant they were peaceful while I was slowly breaking into pieces. It meant they got to smile and laugh while I carried the crushing weight of their lives on my shoulders. It meant they felt entitled to the fruits of my labor, and I was made to feel guilty for wanting to keep any of it for myself or my child. This was the history. This was the web of control. It was a prison I had foolishly helped build, and I had handed my mother the only key. I paid for their lives, and in exchange, they granted me permission to exist in their orbit. Until today, until that one phone call, when my own mother, with 2 simple, brutal sentences, informed me that my daughter, my sweet, innocent Maya, was not well behaved enough to be part of the very family I was funding. She had finally pushed too far. She had finally made a demand that even my deeply ingrained guilt couldn't cover. She had come for my child, and that was the one bill I would never, ever pay. The call ended, but the silence in my kitchen was a roaring in my ears. My mother's words, "Your daughter can sit this one out," echoed in the space between us. Maya was still looking at me, her juice completely forgotten, her small face a mask of confusion. "Mommy?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Why did Grandma say that?" I let my phone clatter onto the counter and immediately knelt in front of her, pulling her small, tense body into a tight hug. I could feel her trying so hard to be brave, her little mind racing to figure out what she could have possibly done wrong. "You did nothing wrong," I said, my own voice shaking with a fury I hadn't felt in years. "You did absolutely nothing wrong at all, sweetie. Do you hear me? Grandma, she's just having a bad day." It was a weak, pathetic lie. But she said, "She doesn't want me." Maya's voice broke on the last word, and the tears she'd been holding back finally came. She buried her face into my shoulder, and a sound came out of her that I will never forget. It was a deep, wounded sob that ripped right through my soul. This wasn't a child's tantrum. This was the sound of a little girl's heart being broken by her own grandmother. A black, cold rage filled my chest, so potent it felt like ice water flooding my veins. It was nothing like the tired, simmering resentment I usually felt. This was a new kind of anger, sharp, focused, and immensely powerful. My body went completely still. I just held Maya, rocking her gently, whispering over and over that she was perfect, that she was loved, that I loved her more than anything in the world. I was her mother. My one job was to protect her, and for years I had catastrophically failed. I had been protecting her abusers instead. I had been prioritizing the feelings of the very people who, time and again, had shown me that I was only valuable to them as long as the money flowed. I had willingly invited the vipers into my home, into my life, and then acted surprised when they finally sank their fangs into my child. After what felt like an eternity, Maya's sobs quieted into exhausted little hiccups. "How about we watch your favorite cartoon?" I suggested, gently wiping the tear tracks from her flushed cheeks. "And we can make pancakes for breakfast? With lots of chocolate chips." She managed a small nod, her eyes red and puffy. "Okay, Mommy." I settled her onto the sofa with the TV remote and a soft blanket, tucking it around her. I kissed the top of her head. "I'll be right back." I walked back into the kitchen, my hands clenched into tight fists. My phone was on the counter, right where I'd dropped it. The screen was lit up with a notification. It was from Instagram. It was my sister Sophia. I tapped the app open, and there it was. A brand new post, a video to be precise. My mother, Eleanor, was holding a flute of champagne aloft, a triumphant smile on her face. My sister, Sophia, was right beside her, blowing a kiss at the camera. In the background, my brother, Leo, was already stuffing his face with a pastry. They were at the Gilded Lily, the most expensive and exclusive brunch spot in the city, the one I always paid for on holidays. They were all smiling, laughing, bathed in the perfect morning sunlight streaming through a large window. It was a picture of pure, performative happiness. Eleanor had posted it just minutes after hanging up on me. Minutes after telling me my daughter wasn't welcome. I read the caption, and the air was punched from my lungs. Happy Mother's Day to the best mom in the world. So happy to celebrate with our real family. Love you. Our real family. The words were a deliberate, calculated strike. A real family. Meaning a family without me, a family without Maya. I scrolled numbly through the comments that were already pouring in. Beautiful. Goals. Love you all so much. They were putting on a show. This was their public declaration of war. This was my punishment for daring to question them, even implicitly. They were showing me, and everyone we knew, that I was disposable. That the brunch, funded by me, would go on without me. That they were the tight-knit family unit, and I was just the outsider who paid the bills. I thought about all the years I had sat at that very table with them, forcing a smile for photos exactly like that one. All the times Eleanor had raised a glass of wine that I had paid for, and toasted to family. It was all a lie, every single moment of it. I was never their daughter or their sister. I was their sponsor. And today, they had decided to publicly humiliate me for my perceived insubordination. They thought this would break me. They imagined I would see this picture, hear my daughter crying in the other room, and I would do what I always did. They thought I would come crawling back. They fully expected a call from me, filled with apologies for a crime I hadn't even committed. They expected me to beg for their forgiveness, to offer to pay for an even more expensive dinner that night, maybe buy Sophia a new designer handbag, just to be allowed back into the hallowed circle of the real family. I stared at the picture again. Eleanor's smug, self-satisfied smile, Sophia's perfectly practiced pout, Leo already looking half drunk at 10 in the morning. They thought this was their power over me. Exclusion, humiliation. But the cold, sharp feeling crystallizing inside me wasn't sadness. It wasn't desperation. It was absolute blinding clarity. It was as if a light switch had finally been flipped in a dark room I'd been trapped in for years. They weren't humiliating me. They were setting me free. I glanced over at Maya, engrossed in her cartoon, safe and sound here with me. You just made the biggest mistake of your lives, I whispered to the empty kitchen. This wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. My anger wasn't hot and chaotic. It was a cold, productive fire. I picked up my phone. I didn't open Instagram to write a rebuttal. I didn't open my text messages to engage in their drama. I opened my banking app. My hands were perfectly steady. The rage I felt wasn't a tremor. It was a steel rod that had just been fused to my spine. I opened the app. The familiar blue and white interface loaded. My checking account, my savings, the credit card accounts. For years, logging into this app had filled me with a familiar, dull dread. It was the place I went to see how much of my life, how much of my hard work they had siphoned away that week. Today, it felt different. It felt like a control panel. I navigated to account settings, then to manage authorized users. 3 names stared back at me from the screen: Eleanor Pierce, Leo Pierce, Sophia Reed. I tapped on Eleanor's name first. The app prompted me with a question. Are you sure you want to remove this user? I thought about Maya's devastated face. Grandma doesn't love me. I thought about the brunch picture, our real family. I thought about her voice on the phone. Mother's Day is for the good kids. I pressed confirm. A small loading circle spun for a second. Then, a green checkmark appeared. Eleanor Pierce has been removed. A breath I didn't even realize I had been holding for 2 decades left my body in a long, slow sigh. It was done, just like that. 20 years of financial servitude ended with a single tap on a screen. I moved to the next name, Leo Pierce. I remembered the time he called me at 2 a.m., stranded and drunk, needing money for a cab. I sent it without a second thought. I remembered the endless car payments, the so-called loans for his music career that did little more than fund his bar tabs. I remembered him completely forgetting Maya's 9th birthday, only to text me for money 3 days later. I tapped remove. The app asked again. "Are you sure?" "I am," I whispered to the phone. I pressed confirm, green check mark. Leo Pierce has been removed. Finally, Sophia Reed, my sister, the one who truly believed she was a princess and I was her personal lady-in-waiting, tasked with funding her lavish lifestyle. I thought about the spa days, the designer clothes, the vacations I couldn't afford to take myself, the endless stream of boxes from online stores that arrived at her house, all billed to my account. The casual, cruel way she would look at my perfectly fine clothes and say, "Oh, Alex, you try so hard." I tapped remove. I pressed confirm. Green check mark. Sophia Reed has been removed. I stared at the screen. The authorized users list was now empty. It simply said, "You have no authorized users on this account." I felt quiet. I thought I would feel triumphant, or maybe guilty, or even scared, but I just felt still. But I wasn't finished. Removing them was just step one. They still had the physical cards in their wallets. I needed to stop the bleeding completely. I navigated to the cards section. I saw the 3 cards linked to my primary account, each with their name embossed on the plastic. I tapped on Eleanor's card. Freeze card. Click. I tapped on Leo's card. Freeze card. Click. I tapped on Sophia's card. Freeze card. Click. All 3 were now inactive. There was one last crucial thing, the brunch. They were at the Gilded Lily. I knew the manager, David, and I knew they had a standing reservation for holidays, which was automatically billed to my account via a pre-authorization. They didn't even have to present a card. They would just eat and drink to their heart's content, and I would get the massive bill later. I went to scheduled payments. I found the pre-authorization for the Gilded Lily. Cancel pre-authorization. Click, confirm, click. It was done. All of it. In less than 3 minutes, I had completely dismantled the entire financial apparatus that had propped up my family for my entire adult life. I put the phone down on the counter. "What are you doing, Mommy?" Maya asked from the sofa, having paused her show. I walked over and sat down next to her, pulling the soft blanket over both our laps. I picked up her small hand and held it in mine. "I'm just doing some cleaning, sweetie," I said. She looked at me, her eyes still a little shadowed with sadness. "Are you sad because of Grandma?" I looked into her beautiful face, the face of the only person in my entire family who had ever loved me without a price tag attached. I felt a wave of love for her so fierce it was almost painful. I tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. "I'm not sad," I said, my voice firm and clear. "And I want you to listen to me. What Grandma said, that was about her. It was not about you. Love that makes you feel like you have to be well-behaved all the time isn't really love. It's just control." She nodded slowly. She didn't fully understand the words, but she understood my tone. She understood, finally and completely, that I was on her side. "I love you, Mommy. I love you more, baby." I kissed her forehead. "Now how about those pancakes?" As I stood up to go to the kitchen, my phone, which had been silent on the counter, lit up. A text message from Sophia. "My card was just declined at the salon. Fix it. I smiled, a real, genuine smile. I didn't touch the phone. A minute later, another text. This one from Leo. Alex, WTF? My gas card isn't working. Another from Sophia. Alex, I'm serious. I'm stuck here and it's embarrassing. Whatever is wrong, fix it now. Then the family group chat, the one I usually read with a sinking feeling in my stomach, exploded. Sophia. Alex, answer me. Leo. Did you forget to pay the bill again? Sophia. She's probably ignoring us. Typical. I watched the message bubbles pop up one after another. Declined. Not working. Declined. The sound of their dawning panic was silent, but I could feel the frantic energy even from across the room. The machine had stopped. The bank was officially closed. I left the phone on the counter. I went to the pantry, got out the pancake mix, and started to hum a little song for Maya. The storm was just beginning. But for the first time in my life, I was safe and warm inside, and the door was locked. I was measuring out the pancake mix when the phone started ringing. This time, it wasn't a text notification. It was an actual call from Eleanor. The word Mom flashed on the screen. I looked at it. I let it ring and ring and ring. It went to voicemail. I started mixing the batter. Milk, 1 egg. It rang again. Mom. I let it ring. Voicemail. Maya was watching me from the living room. Aren't you going to answer, Grandma? She asked, her voice small. No, sweetie, I said calmly, not missing a beat with my whisk. I'm making you breakfast. You're much more important. A text from Eleanor flashed on the screen. Alexandra Marie Pierce, you call me this instant. This is not a request. I laughed, a short, sharp, genuine laugh. I turned the phone over, face down on the granite countertop. I would not let their manufactured chaos ruin this morning. I would not let them reach me. I poured the first pancake onto the hot, buttered griddle. It sizzled satisfyingly. The sweet, warm smell of it began to fill the kitchen. It was the first time in so long that my own home had actually felt like my own. Then the phone rang again. This time, it was an unknown number, but with a local area code. My stomach did a little flip. This was it. This was the one. I took a deep, steadying breath. I picked up the phone. I pressed accept and put it on speaker, keeping the volume low. Hello? Ms. Alexandra Pierce? A man's voice. Professional, calm, but with an undercurrent of discomfort. This is she, I said, flipping the pancake. It was a perfect golden brown. Ms. Pierce, this is David Chen, the manager at the Gilded Lily. I have your mother Eleanor and her party here. We seem to be having a small issue with the card on file. He sounded so polite, so deeply embarrassed on my behalf. He thought this was some horrible accident. He was trying to save me from the humiliation. Hello, David, I said, my voice even and clear. Thank you for calling me. I'm very sorry that you've been put in the middle of this. There was a brief pause on his end. Oh, he said, the single word carrying a weight of new understanding. So, you're aware of the situation? Yes, I said. I am. I could hear the faint clinking of silverware in the background, the low murmur of the other restaurant guests. I see, David said slowly. Well, your mother. She said you were just running late. She said you would be here shortly to handle the bill, the lie, the performance. Of course. She would never admit in public that her power had been revoked. She would paint me as the villain, the one who was late, the one who had made a mistake. I took another deep breath. This was the moment, the final cut. No, David, I said, and my voice was like steel, calm, strong, and clean. I will not be joining them, and they are no longer authorized users on my account. I added, for clarity's sake, my mother, Eleanor Pierce, will be handling her own bill today. The silence on the line was so absolute, I thought he might have hung up. I could picture the scene perfectly. David standing by the polished host station, phone to his ear, looking over at table 7. Eleanor, still holding her champagne, laughing a little too loudly. Sophia taking another selfie. Leo flagging down a waiter for another mimosa. All of them playing their parts, all of them waiting for me to come running, wallet in hand, to pay for their grand performance. "David?" I prompted. "Yes," he said, his voice changed. The professional unease was gone, replaced by a cool, quiet understanding. "I see. I understand completely, Miss Pierce. I apologize again for the inconvenience to you and your staff," I said. "It's no inconvenience at all, ma'am," he replied, and his tone was firm now. "I'll take care of it." He didn't mean he would pay the bill. He meant he would handle the situation. He was an ally. He understood. "Thank you, David. Have a good day." "You too, Miss Pierce." I hung up. I put the phone back down, face down. I plated the golden brown pancake, placed it in front of Maya, and drizzled it with maple syrup. "Here you go, my love." "Thank you, Mommy," she said, her eyes bright. The painful phone call with her grandmother was already fading from her mind, replaced by the immediate simple joy of pancakes. I let myself imagine the scene unfolding at the restaurant. David Chen, a consummate professional, walking over to their table. The polite, quiet murmur. "Mrs. Pierce? I'm afraid the card on file has been declined." "What? That's impossible. Just run it again." "We have, ma'am. Several times. I also just spoke with Miss Pierce. She has confirmed that you will be handling the bill yourselves today." I could see Eleanor's face in my mind's eye. The smile freezing. The polite social mask cracking. The color draining from her cheeks, replaced by a pale, cold rage. I could see Sophia's eyes going wide with genuine horror. Public humiliation. Her absolute worst nightmare. I could see Leo, frozen with a piece of pastry halfway to his mouth, finally realizing the party was over. Who would pay? Eleanor didn't have that kind of money. Neither did Sophia. And Leo definitely didn't. They were trapped. They were exposed. My phone started to buzz on the counter. It didn't just ring. It vibrated so hard it skittered across the granite. Eleanor, Eleanor, Sophia, Leo, Eleanor. It was a frantic, desperate symphony of their collective panic. I didn't look at it. I sat down across from my daughter. I poured myself a cup of coffee. The phone buzzed and buzzed, a trapped, angry insect on the counter. I took a sip of my coffee. It was, without a doubt, the best cup of coffee I had ever had in my life. I was free. My phone was no longer just buzzing. It was having a full-blown seizure on the countertop, vibrating with a desperate, hysterical energy that was the exact opposite of the profound calm in my kitchen. Maya was eating her pancake, humming along to her cartoon. The phone rang again. Eleanor. I had let her previous calls go to voicemail. I had ignored the barrage of texts. But after my call with David, I knew this one was different. This was the call after David had walked to their table. This was the one after he had delivered the news. I wanted to hear it. I needed to hear the sound of their unchecked privilege finally colliding with a wall. I picked up the phone. I pressed accept. I put it on speaker, keeping the volume low. "Hello, Mom." For a second, there was only a loud, shocked silence on the other end. She was stunned that I had actually answered. I could hear the background noise of the restaurant, clinking forks, distant music, and a new, distinct sound. My sister Sophia audibly sobbing in the background. "Alexandra?" Eleanor's voice was high-pitched, a fake, trembling sweetness I knew all too well. This was her, "You've made a terrible mistake, but I'll be the good guy and let you fix it" voice. "Sweetheart, thank God," she breathed. "Something is dreadfully wrong with your card." David is here. He's saying it's been declined. You need to fix it. You're embarrassing us, darling. You're embarrassing us. Not we are embarrassed. Not what is happening. The blame was immediate and reflexive. This was my fault. I took a slow, deliberate breath. I looked at Maya. She was safe. There's nothing wrong with my card, Mom, I said. My voice was quiet, but it cut through the speaker like a razor. The fake sweetness in Eleanor's voice wavered. What? Don't be silly. Just call the bank. There must be a fraud alert. Fix it, Alexandra. People are starting to look. I'll say it again, I said, my voice steady. There is nothing wrong with my card. I'm just not paying for your brunch. The silence that followed was heavy and cold. I could picture her face perfectly. The polite smile frozen, the eyes narrowing into slits. What did you just say to me? She whispered. The sweetness completely gone, replaced by venom. I said I'm not paying, I said, a little louder this time. You, Leo, and Sophia are no longer authorized users on any of my accounts. How dare you, she hissed, the word a physical blow. You are going to turn that card back on this instant. Your sister is crying. You are ruining Mother's Day. You already did that, I said, my voice so calm it surprised even me. You did that about an hour ago. You did that when you told me my daughter wasn't welcome. Oh, for heaven's sake, she shrieked. And now all pretense was gone. This was the real Eleanor, the one I had spent my entire life trying to appease. You're going to hold that against me? It was a simple comment. She needs to learn. You are far too soft on her. It wasn't a comment, I said. It was a choice. And now I'm making mine. I could hear Sophia wailing dramatically in the background. Make her fix it, Mommy. Make her fix it. I can't. They're all staring at us. You hear that, Alexandra? Eleanor screamed into the phone. You hear what you're doing to your sister, to this family, after everything we've done for you, after I raised you. What have you done for me, Mom? I asked. And it was a genuine question. Besides, teach me that your love has a price I've been paying every single day of my adult life. You ungrateful, she sputtered, losing control, the mask completely shattered. You think you're so powerful now, don't you? You think you can control us just because you have the money? There it was, the truth as she saw it. She thought this was a power play, a negotiation. She thought I was finally using the one weapon I had against them. I almost laughed. The money was never my power. It was my prison. It was the leash she used to walk me. I looked at my daughter, who was happily asking for another pancake. The simple, honest, real love in this kitchen was something my mother knew nothing about. No, Mom, I said, and my voice was as calm as a whisper. I don't feel powerful because I have the money. I paused, wanting her to hear every word, wanting it to sink in. I feel powerful because I finally removed your access to it. I heard a sharp intake of breath. I heard her try to speak, to form another threat, another insult, but all that came out was sputtering rage. There was no script for this. I had never, ever hung up on her. So I did. I pressed the red end call button. My hand was steady. I was not shaking. I was not crying. I felt clean. The phone immediately began to ring again. Mom, I declined it. It rang again. Sophia, I declined it. It rang again. Leo, I declined it. I turned the ringer off. I turned the phone face down. I finished making the pancakes. We ate at our little kitchen table. We talked about school and her latest drawing and what movie we should watch later. It was the most normal, peaceful breakfast I had ever had. After we finished, I cleaned the dishes. I looked at the phone, now dark and silent on the counter. I knew they were still there, trapped. They had no money. They had no exit strategy. They were sitting in a fancy restaurant, humiliated, with a bill they could not possibly pay. I thought about just leaving them there. It was what they deserved. But I knew I couldn't. Not for them, for me. This wasn't a negotiation, it was an amputation. And a good surgeon always checks the wound. I was not going to run. I was not going to hide. I was going to walk in there, pay what was fair, and close the door in their faces for good. I would not be the one who ran away. I told Maya I had to run a quick errand and that I would be back in 30 minutes. I put on her favorite movie, locked the door securely behind me, and got in my car. I was not going to rescue them. I was going to end this. The drive to the Gilded Lily was 15 minutes. 15 minutes where the old Alex was screaming inside my head. Just fix it. Just turn the card on for 1 hour. You can deal with this later. Don't make a scene. Don't make them hate you. That voice had run my entire life. That voice had cost me my peace, my self-respect, and had nearly broken my daughter's heart. I told it to be quiet. The new Alex, the one who was born just a few hours ago, was driving. She was calm. Her hands were steady on the steering wheel. This was not a rescue mission. This was a business transaction. I was closing a bad account. I pulled into the valet parking. I saw them through the big front window of the restaurant before I even got out of the car. The tableau was even worse than I had imagined. It was a full-blown public scene. My family was still at their table, but they were no longer the glamorous happy brunchers from Sophia's Instagram post. They were a complete mess. Eleanor was standing, her face a pale, blotchy red. She was gesturing wildly at David, the manager, who stood a few feet away, his arms crossed, looking professional and utterly unmoved. Sophia was sitting, her face buried in her hands, her shoulders shaking in what looked like a very real, very ugly cry. And Leo was just staring. He was slumped in his chair, a piece of half-eaten pastry on the plate in front of him, looking like a lost little boy. Other diners were openly staring. The entire restaurant was tense. The real family performance was officially over. I handed the valet my keys. I walked to the door. I pushed it open. The little bell above the door chimed. The restaurant went silent. Every head turned to look at me. Eleanor's head snapped in my direction. The most bizarre look crossed her face. It was not relief. It was not gratitude. It was a look of furious triumph. She thought I had caved. She thought I had come to beg for forgiveness, to smooth things over, to pay the bill and restore her power. She took a step toward me. Finally, she hissed, her voice low and shaking with rage. She reached out and grabbed my wrist, her fingers digging into my skin like claws. "Stop this," she whispered, yanking my arm. "Stop this right now. Go to David and unfreeze the card. You have embarrassed me enough for one day." I looked down at her hand on my wrist, at her perfectly manicured nails. I had paid for that manicure. I looked up at her face, twisted with an entitlement so deep she couldn't even see how ugly it had become. I didn't pull away. I simply waited. I met her eyes. "You don't get to keep privileges," I said, my voice as cold and clear as ice water, "after you discard people." I slowly, deliberately unhooked her fingers from my arm. I left her standing there, speechless. I walked past her. I walked past Sophia's theatrical sobs. I walked past Leo, who wouldn't even look at me. I walked right up to David Chen. He looked at me, his expression neutral, but his eyes were full of respect. "David," I said, my voice polite and strong, "I am here to settle the bill, but I am not paying for all of it. Please give me an itemized receipt." "Of course, Miss Pierce," he said. He had it ready. He handed me the long slip of paper. I scanned it. It was shocking. 3 bottles of their most expensive champagne, 4 mimosas each, multiple appetizers. the main courses. The grand total was well over $1,000. I looked at it, then I looked at David. They ordered the first bottle of champagne after I spoke with my mother on the phone, I said. After she told me my daughter was not welcome here. I am not paying for their party. I will pay for the food they actually ate and the coffee they drank. Nothing else. Alexandra! Eleanor shrieked from behind me. She was vibrating with rage. You will pay for every single penny. I am your mother. You owe me. I don't owe you anything, I said, not even looking at her. I was still talking to David. I pulled out my personal debit card, the one they had never had access to. I will pay for the omelet, the pastries, the eggs Benedict, and the coffees. That is all. I quickly calculated the amount. It comes to $94. David nodded. I can do that, he said. This is outrageous, Sophia suddenly wailed, lifting her head. Her mascara was smeared down her face in black rivulets. You're destroying us. You're making us look poor. You are poor, I said, finally turning to look at them, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. You've just been living on my money for so long, you forgot. I handed David my card. He ran it. He handed me the receipt to sign. I signed my name. Thank you, David, I said. I'm sorry they did this to you. It's all taken care of, Miss Pierce, he said, with a small, understanding nod. I turned to my family one last time. They looked stunned, broken. Eleanor looked at the remaining bill on the table. The bill for all the champagne, the bill for their luxury, the bill for their cruelty. What are we supposed to do with this? Eleanor whispered, her voice finally, truly full of fear. I don't know, I said. You'll have to handle it. For the first time in their adult lives, they were facing the cost, the literal, actual cost of their own behavior. And there was no one left to bail them out. I turned around. I walked out of the restaurant. The little bell chimed behind me. I did not look back. I got in my car and I drove home to my daughter. I walked back into my house, and the peace of it washed over me like a warm wave. The chaos of the restaurant felt like it had happened on a different planet. The television was playing softly. I heard the quiet sound of a crayon moving across paper. I walked into the kitchen. Maya was at the table, completely focused on her coloring book, her tongue sticking out the side of her mouth in concentration. Hi, Mommy, she said, not looking up. Was that a fast errand? Yes, sweetie, I said, kissing the top of her head. It was very fast. I sat down at the table across from her and just watched her color. She was drawing a picture of a garden full of bright, impossible flowers. My heart was beating normally. My hands were steady. The confrontation was over. I had faced them, and I had not broken. But the work was not done. The scene at the restaurant was just a symptom. The credit card was just one tentacle. The sickness was systemic. My mother, my brother, and my sister were wrapped around every single part of my life, every utility, every account, every emergency contact. I had done it all myself over years in the name of support and family and keeping the peace. I had not just given them an allowance, I had given them total access. Now I was going to take it all back. I went to my office and got my laptop. I sat at the kitchen table with Maya. She colored, I worked. This was the real cutoff. First, I logged back into my main bank account. I double-checked. Authorized users, none. Good. But I knew Eleanor still had transfer privileges from her own small account, an emergency measure I'd set up years ago. I went into the settings. Manage external transfers. Eleanor Pierce, Leo Pierce. I clicked. Remove. I clicked. Remove. Processing. Completed. Next, the phone plan. I logged into my carrier's website. I was the primary account holder for 4 lines: mine, Eleanor's, Leo's, and Sophia's. They had been on my family plan for a decade. They all had the newest, top-of-the-line phones. I, of course, had a 3-year-old model. I clicked Manage Lines. I found the option, Transfer of Liability. I started the process. Line 2, Eleanor Pierce, Transfer Liability. Line 3, Leo Pierce, Transfer Liability. Line 4, Sophia Reed, Transfer Liability. The system informed me that they would each receive a text message. They would have 30 days to set up their own accounts and accept the financial liability for their phone numbers. If they did nothing, their lines would be disconnected. I pressed confirm. Done. Next, the car. Leo's car. The one I had co-signed for. The one I was paying for every month. The one that was registered in my name with him listed as a driver. I logged into my auto insurance account, managed drivers, Leo Pierce. I clicked Remove Driver. The website warned me this would take 24 hours to process. Fine. Then I opened a new tab. I found the number for my auto loan. I called them. I explained that I wanted to sell the vehicle. The bank, of course, was happy to help. They didn't care who drove it as long as they got their money. I was going to sell the car. Leo could take the bus. Done. Next, the subscriptions. This was smaller, but deeply symbolic. Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, Spotify Family, all of them were logged in at their houses, on their TVs, on their phones, all billed to me. I went into each account, manage devices, log out of all devices, click, then I changed every single password. Done. I sat back and looked at the list I had made. Bank, phone, car, subscriptions. Was that everything? Number. I thought about my work, my job. My mother was listed as my primary emergency contact. I logged into my company's HR portal. Emergency contact, Eleanor Pierce. I deleted her. I put in the name of my neighbor, Sarah, a kind woman who had watched Maya for me once in a jam. Done. Maya's school. I logged into the parent portal. Emergency pickup list. 1. Alexandra Pierce. 2. Eleanor Pierce. I stared at her name. The idea of her showing up here, at my daughter's school, made me feel physically sick. I clicked the edit button. I deleted her name. Done. I closed the laptop. It was finished. The entire system of support, the intricate web of access I had spent my adult life building, was gone. I had dismantled it completely in less than an hour. All those years, my family had operated like a monarchy. Eleanor was the queen. Sophia and Leo were the prince and princess. I was the treasury, the worker bee. They saw this as the natural order of things. They wanted a hierarchy, I murmured to myself, watching Maya color. She was drawing a big, brilliant yellow sun in the corner of the page. I looked back at my closed laptop. Now they'll learn independence. I felt a quiet final click inside my chest. It was the sound of the last lock falling into place. The door was shut. I was safe. We were safe. Maya held up her drawing. "Look, Mommy, it's our garden. It's beautiful, sweetheart," I said. And for the first time, I wasn't pretending. It truly was beautiful. I slept that night. I mean, I really slept. For the first time in what felt like my entire life, I did not go to bed with a knot of dread in my stomach. I didn't wake up at 3 a.m. worrying about a credit card bill or a passive-aggressive text message. I slept a deep, dreamless, heavy sleep. I woke up to sunlight. I woke up to silence. I got out of bed, put on my robe, and went to the kitchen to make coffee. My house felt like a sanctuary. I had left my phone in my office charging. I had not looked at it since I'd finished the systemic cutoff. I poured my coffee. I sat at my kitchen table. I listened to the birds outside. It was only after I finished my first cup that I went to get the phone. I was ready. I turned it on. The screen lit up, and it was a digital explosion, a sea of red notification circles. 64 missed calls, 122 new text messages, 18 new voicemails. They were from Eleanor, Sophia, and Leo, but they were also from my aunts, my cousins, my mother's friends. The smear campaign had officially begun. I took a sip of coffee. I opened the voicemails. I pressed play on the first one from Eleanor, sent late last night. It was not a human voice. It was a sound, a raw, guttural scream of pure animalistic rage. "You will not do this. I am your mother. I will have you arrested. You have stolen from me. You will be sorry. You will be—" I pressed delete. I played the next one, Sophia. She was weeping hysterically. Alex, how could you? We had to wash dishes." I stopped the message. Wash dishes? A small, dark laugh escaped my lips. David Chen was a genius. He hadn't just let them go. He had made them work off the champagne bill. The public humiliation was absolute. "My husband, Richard, he had to come get us. My life is over," she wailed. I pressed delete. The texts were more of the same: threats, insults, guilt trips, curses. "Leo, my phone isn't working." "Leo, WTF Alex, I can't buy food." "Leo, you left us there to be humiliated." "Eleanor, you are dead to me." "Eleanor, I am calling a lawyer." "Eleanor, you are a cold, heartless snake." "Sophia, I hope you're happy. I'm never speaking to you again." Me, internally. Good. I was scrolling through the sea of digital hatred when the phone rang in my hand. It was not a family member. It was Mr. Henderson, my branch manager at the bank. I took a breath and answered. "Hello, Mr. Henderson." "Miss Pierce," he said, and he sounded utterly exhausted. "I am so glad I reached you. I have a situation here." "What kind of situation?" I asked, though I already knew. "Your mother, brother, and sister are in my lobby. They have been here for over an hour. They are causing a significant disturbance." He paused. "Ms. Pierce, they are demanding access to your accounts. They are claiming you are mentally unwell and that they have a right to your funds. They are threatening to sue the bank. They are yelling." I could hear a faint shriek in the background that sounded distinctly like Eleanor. The old Alex would have been mortified. She would have rushed down there, apologizing profusely, ready to smooth it all over. The new Alex took a sip of coffee. "Mr. Henderson," I said calmly, "are my mother, brother, or sister listed on any of my accounts in any capacity?" "No, of course not," he said. "Not since you removed them yesterday. I've told them that repeatedly. They will not listen. They are not handling this well." "I see," I said. "Well, there is no mistake. The removal is permanent. They have no access to my life, my accounts, or my information. If they are threatening you or your staff, I recommend you call security. They said they are going to call the police and file a report for theft," he said, his voice low. "Theft of what?" I asked. "It's my money. They are not my partners. They are not my dependents." I heard Eleanor scream again in the background. "Tell her I'm her mother." Mr. Henderson sighed, a long, weary sound. "Miss Pierce." I gave him the final sentence, the one that would protect him and end this for good. "Mr. Henderson, please inform them that if they have any further dispute, they should have their lawyer contact my legal counsel. Do not speak to them again. Please call security and have them removed from the property." There was a beat of silence. Then I heard a distinct click, as if he just stood up straighter. "Yes, Ms. Pierce," he said, his voice full of new authority. "I will do that right now. Thank you." He hung up. I put the phone down. The collapse wasn't mine. It was theirs. They had built their entire lives on a lie. The lie that I would pay for it forever. The lie that I was their property. The The collapse was the sound of their fake world hitting the hard ground of reality. The smear campaign continued for days. A text from my aunt. "Alex, your mother is in a state. She says you've stolen her money." A cousin. "Heard you're having some kind of breakdown. So sad. We're all praying for you." Sophia posted a long, vague diatribe on Facebook about the pain of being betrayed by your own blood and praying for those who have lost their way to greed. I read them all, and I felt nothing. The old me would have been frantic, calling everyone, desperately trying to explain. "That's not what happened. She's lying. Let me explain." I would have been desperate to manage my reputation, but I finally realized my reputation with those people was just another chain. I didn't need to defend myself to an audience that was already committed to misunderstanding me. They could have their story. I had my freedom. I did not respond. I did not defend. I blocked Eleanor's number. I blocked Leo's number. I blocked Sophia's number. I blocked my aunt's number. I deactivated my social media accounts. I cut every single rope, and the silence that followed was wonderful. Weeks passed, then a month. The quiet in my life was no longer new. It was normal. It was a soft, warm blanket. My phone, once a source of constant dread, was now just a tool. It held pictures of Maya at the park. It had an app for a meditation practice I'd started. It had my banking app. I opened the banking app sometimes just to look. I looked at my checking account. The numbers were high. They were growing. My salary was finally my own. For the first time ever, I was putting a significant amount of money into a college fund for Maya. I was building my own savings. I was paying down my mortgage faster, not paying off my mother's credit card. The weight of 3 other adults was off my back, and I felt so light I thought I might just float away. My life became small in the best possible way. It was just me and Maya. We cooked dinner together. We went to the park. We read books snuggled on the couch. There were no frantic weekend calls demanding money. There were no obligatory holiday dinners to host and pay for. There was no dread. One Saturday morning, I woke up, and the sun was shining brightly through the window. "What do you want to do today, sweetie?" I asked Maya as she padded into the kitchen. "Can we go to the big garden?" she asked. "The one with the fountains?" "Yes," I said. "Let's go." We drove to the botanical gardens. We got there around 9:30 in the morning. Right at the entrance, there was a small cart selling ice cream. Maya looked at it, then at me. "Can I? Or is it too early?" Her question held the ghost of her grandmother, the voice that always said everything fun was spoiling, that every yes was irresponsible. I smiled a wide, genuine smile. It is never too early for ice cream. I bought 2 big chocolate cones. We walked through the blooming rose garden, eating ice cream at 9:30 in the morning, just because we could. We found a quiet bench by a pond and sat watching the ducks paddle around. Maya was happy. She was a different child. She wasn't an anxious, quiet little mouse, constantly trying to be well-behaved so her grandmother would love her. She was just a kid. She was laughing, her face smeared with chocolate. She leaned her head against my arm. "Are they still mad, Mom?" she asked, her voice small. She meant Eleanor and Leo and Sophia. I paused, thinking about how to answer her. I had heard things, not because I asked, but because news travels in families, even fractured ones. I'd heard Eleanor had to get a part-time job as a cashier. I'd heard Leo had lost the car and was taking the bus, complaining about it constantly. I'd heard Sophia and Richard were in serious financial trouble and had to downsize to a small apartment. They were furious. They were miserable. They were confused. They were learning in the hardest way possible that the world did not, in fact, owe them a living. They were learning that their actions had consequences. I looked down at Maya. I wiped a little smudge of chocolate off her nose. Yes, I think they're probably still mad, I said honestly. But more than that, I think they're learning. Learning what? Learning how to take care of themselves, I said. She nodded, satisfied with that answer, and went back to her ice cream. I looked out at the water. For my entire life, I had confused love with debt. I thought I had to pay for their affection. I thought I had to sacrifice my own peace to keep their peace. I looked at my daughter, relaxed and safe and happy beside me, and I knew what real love was. It wasn't a transaction. It wasn't a performance. It was this. It was quiet. It was safe. It was ice cream in the morning. It was a home where she never had to be well-behaved to be worthy of love. The boundary I set on Mother's Day wasn't an act of hate. It was the most profound act of love I had ever committed. It wasn't a wall to keep people out. It was a foundation for a new life, a life where love didn't cost me my peace of mind. I had ended the cycle. I had built a home right here on this bench that my daughter could finally, truly feel safe in. "Come on," I said, standing up. I took her small, sticky hand in mine. "Let's go see the big fountain." We walked on further into the garden, and I did not look back.